I have recently become a fan of an internet reviewer by the name of Victor, who publishes reviews, random thoughts, and film exposés in between his work at college. And after watching his latest review on 2001: A Space Odyssey, I have come to realize that our tastes in Kubrick are entirely opposite. I love 2001, but dislike Dr. Strangelove, whereas Victor of the Junkyard enjoys Strangelove, but hates 2001. So before I begin my own review of Kubrick's black comedy, Dr. Strangelove, I must assure Victor that I mean no offense by this video. I simply didn't like this film and seek to explain why. It may come as a surprise to most of you that I will be presenting a negative review of Dr. Strangelove. After all, two of director Kubrick's later works, 2001 and The Shining, rank among the greatest films I have ever seen, and Strangelove has attained the rare pinnacle of 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I was quite eager to watch Stanley Kubrick's only obvious venture into comedy, but reached the ludicrous ending with a profound sense of disappointment. I suppose my criticism of such a well-liked movie boils down to the fact that, with so many elements to its favor, the film can only degrade itself with juvenile and, frankly, unfunny satire. To be fair, Dr. Strangelove does have an incredibly strong opening act, in which the nuclear conflict is established and the stakes are laid out in the open. With Peter Sellers in the helm as a stern, severe U.S. president fighting to avert a nuclear apocalypse, the viewer can genuinely believe that the world and the human race are in danger. Sellers' second performance as Group Captain Lionel Mandrake is also effective. Visibly upset and pleading for the recall codes, Mandrake adds a certain duplicity to his scenes, in that you can never quite tell whether he is a communist or not. Mandrake's superior, Colonel Ripper, is also compelling to watch. A tired, strained man with a thin shell of toughness, Ripper only released these disastrous bombing commands to stamp out the very relevant threat of communist terror and subversion. Finally, Slim Pickens fills his role nicely as Major Kong, a bomber pilot driven to following his orders, no matter the cost. The opening 20 to 25 minutes have a tense, urgent mood that lends it the feel of a documentary. Unfortunately, this terrific opening is as good as Dr. Strangelove gets, as it can only pitch downhill from here. At one point, Sellers' president is thrust into a long, labored phone call with a drunken Russian premier. Beyond the simple lack of humor in this scene, which dragged on for far longer than it should have, this silly sequence simply ruins the formerly urgent mood of the film. As for Dr. Strangelove himself, he is the least funny, interesting, or believable character in the film. The third of Sellers' characters, Strangelove is a wheelchair-bound former Nazi scientist with some embarrassingly banal gags. His black-gloved hand, which will spontaneously try to either strangle him or strike a Nazi salute, has no relevance to the plot and is patently unfunny. The plot of this film is also awfully muddled. What's all this business about fluoridated water being a commie conspiracy? Or the Russian ambassador a preening pig? Or the nuclear bomb a rodeo bull? These scenes didn't even arouse a chuckle, and seemed to be nothing more than weak or even inappropriate. And finally, the Doomsday Machine was the element of the film that etched my dislike of the movie in stone. The threat of mass Russian retaliation would have been fair and frightening enough, but the Doomsday Machine is revealed to be of Soviet invention, but independent activation. Neither side will be responsible for the nuclear catastrophe, thus rendering the US versus USSR context of the film irrelevant. The Doomsday Machine is rarely mentioned, never seen, and poorly explained, and is therefore just a flimsy plot device that fails to hold our interest. In the conclusion of Dr. Strangelove, Major Kong's bomber reaches its target, drops its nuke, and blows a Russian ICBM plant to oblivion, thus triggering the Doomsday Machine. But the war room politicians, rather than lamenting this grave tragedy, instead eagerly follow the obnoxious suggestion by Dr. Strangelove of retreating down to the deepest mine shafts, forming a colony with a ratio of 10 females to the 1 male. I know this is a comment on bureaucracy, but this boy's own adventure ending added more juvenile pap than I could take. Now, I know what you're thinking. It probably sounds as if Dr. House reviewed this film. Believe me, I can get that cranky. But my point is that Dr. Strangelove should have been a serious movie in light of its terrific opening conflict and actors. Dr. Strangelove had the potential to be a spectacular, confronting interpretation of the Cold War at its horrific worst, but instead it undermines itself with poorly handled junk. To give you some context, I would have likely disliked Kubrick as a director had I seen Dr. Strangelove before 2001. But, thankfully, I can now look toward Dr. Strangelove as a momentary turkey in Kubrick's otherwise stellar career. Well, thank you for watching. I should be able to review more films, classic and new, in future. Oh, and I should also add once more that I do apologize to Victor for this very hated review. Again, I mean no offense by this review. I simply